Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We are coming to you virtually from Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, and today we are diving deep down I-90 into Portland and the Bay Area. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you. We like to say it is the podcast of record. It's where street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today is the incomparable Linda Popke. That's my new nickname for my new adjective for you, Linda. Incomparable. Our guest today is somebody else who's probably incomparable, Keith Sconiers from PaySuite. Let me tell you a little bit more about Keith. Keith is a Portland-based entrepreneur, financial consultant, and public speaker. We're also going to learn he's a podcaster as well. In 2002, Keith accepted a full ride scholarship to play basketball at Portland State University. After graduating, though, Keith struggled to transition out of the sports world. He soon realized that his true passion goes back to his roots, and that's supporting entrepreneurs and small business owners like those who supported him when he was growing up. About 6 years ago, Keith formed PaySuite, which is a financial services firm committed to serving the needs of businesses in the retail, restaurant, and B2B market. Today, PaySuite is recognized as a premier brand guiding businesses through the credit card processing industry. Keith, we are excited to have you. Welcome. We'll be talking with you in just a couple minutes. Everybody, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. Linda, what might people say we are?
We are ubiquitous.
We are ubiquitous. That means we come from all over. Not only that, we have about a dozen other cities, including the mothership in Atlanta, Boston, Boca Raton, Charleston, soon to be in Dallas as well. Now, before we bring on Keith and start talking about credit cards, I want to talk a little bit about that with Linda. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Dan. How are you today? What's on your mind?
Well, there's always something on my mind. You all people should know that. And it's funny because I bought some stuff yesterday. I bought some swag for the new North Kitsap golf team that I'm coaching, and there's a company out there where a Nike. Speaking of Portland, we're a Nike school. We could buy some swag. They put together a team store, so I put together my shopping cart, and I went to pay using my American Express, which is my credit card of choice because I rack up a bunch of membership points. Right, I like doing that. They said we take Visa and MasterCard only. And it was like, my Amex is my number one quarterback. My backup is my Discover because I get points there too. I don't really use my Visa and MasterCard, which I did. I ended up doing it, but I thought, holy cow, that's it. What if somebody, I don't know. Do you still find limitations? Because I can even take crypto if I had to. Linda, are you still finding in your shopping world restrictions and limitations like that?
Well, I don't think it's as bad as it used to be because a lot of places have Google Pay and Apple Pay and some other things. But my problem is organizations that do that are thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about the customer. If you want to get the customer to give you money, you need to make it as easy as possible. And that means you need to offer all kinds of ways, Venmo, PayPal, you name it. So that people can do what they can give you money just the way they want to give it to you.
Well, Linda, you actually hit the nail on the head there. They're thinking about themselves because I've heard the complaint, well, there's a fee, or they want to pass on the fee to the client. And to me, it's always been a cost of doing business.
Absolutely.
I get my money. I don't want to, do I really want to wait for a check for 7 days, or would I really like to have that in my account immediately? So I'm going to bring Keith in on this because I think Keith knows a thing or two about credit cards. First of all, Keith, welcome. And I guess I'll ask we're well into the 21st century. Is this still an issue where we've got companies, small companies, trying to survive through a pandemic, making it difficult to pay with a credit card.
Yeah, we are. And I think that it has a lot to do with the provider that they're using, because for the most part, American Express years ago changed their billing model and made it more affordable for small business owners to accept American Express. They streamlined the reporting as well. They used to have to get this separate report of their Amex deposits and sales, and they fixed that issue. And so it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's a situation where small business owners are in a crunch, and their provider is still charging them perhaps the older fees that they used to charge them so that they can make a significant amount of revenue on it. And unfortunately, providers aren't educating their clients about what their options are to make it easier for them when it comes to, collecting those cards, but also reducing the cost so that they can accept whatever form of payment that they get presented with, so they can keep that customer happy, because unfortunately, it is a drag on their customer experience when that happens.
Okay, so what you do is you help organizations figure out how to navigate through this. And it seems to me the whole payment area has gotten much more complicated if you're someone who's accepting payment, right? Because you got the credit card, you got Apple Pay, you got Venmo, PayPal, whatever. How do you help organizations and companies really kind of navigate where they need to go there and make decisions?
Yeah, well, I think that it comes down to, first and foremost, understanding what are the challenges that they're currently having, what is the direction that they're trying to take their business. Because of the pandemic, I think some reports I saw said that the technological advances have sped up by about 6 years. So we're about 6 years ahead of where we would have been because of the pandemic. And so because of that, business owners are recognizing they have needs that are very different than what they were 2 years ago when the pandemic started. And when it comes to navigating the payment processing industry, they have all this sunk cost into infrastructure and technology that they've invested in over the past decade. And it's about trying to help them navigate into the future without completely, taking a loss on everything that they've already invested in. So trying to figure out what are the integrations that they can add onto their system, what are the ways that they can collect payments, what are the ways that they can resolve the reporting issues that they now have, because now most of them are using more like ERP systems or accounting systems like QuickBooks and things of that nature. And we're not only trying to help them collect the payments in all of the forms that they get presented with, but also, what does that look like in the accounting department? What does that look like in the operations department? So we're trying to solve all of these issues and look at their existing infrastructure and help them make good decisions that are not only good for the customer experience, but also for the balance sheet and also for the man hours that it takes to manage all these systems in the back of the house of the business when it comes to that.
So Keith, I'm gonna do a quick step back though. I loved your answer there, but I wanna kind of go back to what we talked a little bit about in your bio. Talk about how you actually got into this business. Pre-show, we were talking that you're from Fresno and you ended up going up to Portland State to play basketball. Give us just a little brief history of you and how you got from playing hoops at Portland State to what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was an at-risk kid that got expelled 6 times before I got to high school. When I got to high school, I got kicked out of school as well, and wasn't welcomed on campus. In my sophomore year, I had a basketball coach approach me and say, "Hey, kid, you could be a Division I athlete." And I had no idea what that meant, but he had a look in his eye and a belief in what I could accomplish. And it was the first time in my life that someone stepped in my life and said, "Hey, you could do something great with your life." And so I took him up on the offer, started playing basketball, ended up getting a scholarship after playing 1 year of junior college down in Irvine. Came to Portland State, played there for 4 years, got done, and then proceeded to try to figure out who I was without a jersey on, and really stumbled through a lot of different sales jobs and roles. And then I came across this opportunity in working in payments for the 5th largest payment processor in the country. And what I found, even though I wasn't necessarily interested in credit card processing, and what I found was that I was really passionate about serving entrepreneurs, because as an at-risk youth, the people that I looked up to were the people that were entrepreneurs in the community that hired my dad to build houses for them or do remodels and things like that. And so it was kind of like a full circle moment where I had this opportunity to advocate for business owners with something that I understood as it relates to payment processing. So that's how I got started. I had, tried a bunch of different jobs and then came across one that really resonated when I got an opportunity to serve entrepreneurs.
So Keith, I want to go back because you talk about being an athlete and whatever, and one of the things you're doing is helping former athletes in terms of what their achievements. So talk a little bit about what you're doing with Catalyst on that, because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. So, when you graduate from a great institution like Portland State and you still feel lost and you're sleeping on the floor of a apartment with no furniture and you're eating macaroni and cheese for dinner every night, and you're eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch, crunchy peanut butter. I knew that there had to be other athletes that felt the way I felt, because I played by the handbook. Like, I went to class. And so for me, I knew that there were plenty of other athletes that were out there that also went to class and did what they were supposed to do and were responsible, but they were still trying to figure out who they were after the jersey came off. And so I made a promise while I was laying on the floor of that apartment that if I ever turned my situation around, that I would do something about that for other people that were in my situation. And so that's where Catalyst comes in at, where, I do some speaking, I do podcasts, and I connect with athletes and try to make connections for them in the business community, help them figure out what they're doing with their resume, the direction they're trying to go in. It's something that it came out of a promise that I made to figure out a way to make a difference in that regard for something that I had personally experienced.
I almost feel like you're somewhat of a serial entrepreneur here, Keith. You've got a couple different things going. They're both really cool, and obviously fueling a passion for you. As you were talking, though, it dawned on me. You were talking about athletes and their identity and where they're going next. I live in a military area. We have the naval base up here with several different parts to that. And I've heard the same thing of when folks who spent 20 or 30 years in the military, they're not kids anymore, but all they know was being in the military. And I'm just curious, when it comes to that, do you think that there are adults kind of going through that same thing, whether it's shifting jobs, or could they also gain value from some of the things that you're teaching the athletes?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think that, for a lot of people, by the time we come out of the wound, we're being taught to be something specific for someone else or play a specific role for someone else, whether that be our parents, our grandparents, or our spouses, or our children at a certain point. And at every point, that we continue to go down this path of playing these roles and these identities for the people around us. And it's very much so like being an athlete. You play a role for the coach and the team. And when you're ready to step into the next phase of your life, you have to figure out, who do you want to be and how do you want to show up? And I think that transition is very much the same for people who are trying to figure out now that it's, hey, I've been an executive for 30 years and now I want to be something else, or maybe it's even down to just their identity as a human being. Like, they've been showing up a certain way for 30 to 40 years and they want to do something different now, or they have to do something different now, or they realize it's going to continue to fall apart for them. And so I think that transition is very similar for the everyday person that's been locked into doing whatever they've been doing for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, as it is for an athlete that's been dedicated for 10 or 20 years as being an athlete.
Right.
Now they got to figure out what the next chapter is going to be about.
Wow, that is fantastic. Well, our next chapter, I can't believe this first one went so quickly. Our next chapter, we have to take a commercial break, pay some bills. We're going to take that short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Keith Sconiers, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to count all the different ways that somebody can get paid as a business. Don't walk away. We will be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
I'd love to write or publish a book, but I just don't have the time. Does this sound like you? Maybe you have a compelling story to share or valuable advice for clients and prospects. If only you could get the story into a published format. Think you don't have time to write a book? Think your writing isn't polished enough to get your message across? Think this all sounds too overwhelming? Think again. At Leverage to Market Associates, we help aspiring authors transform a great book idea into an attractive published work. If you've written most of your book, we can help edit your work and drive it through the production process. If you're not sure where to start, we'll coach you through the process to organize your thoughts and create a compelling book outline. And if you're just not comfortable writing a book yourself, we can ghostwrite this for you too. Contact us at leveragetomarket.com for a complimentary evaluation of your nonfiction book concept today and bring your book to life.
All right. Well, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. And today we have Keith Sconiers, who is in Portland. I'm Linda Popke, and our next segment is Hot or Not. So Dan, let's find out what's hot.
All right, Keith. Well, it's not always hot outside. The weather's not hot. So let's move it inside. Keith, Linda and I are going to pepper you with some questions about business, about life. Maybe we might even talk a little basketball. You never know. You're going to tell us if the concept is hot or not, then why or why not. And unfortunately, at the end, you don't win anything, but let's have some fun with it anyway. I mentioned the number of ways you can get paid. Well, we all know, you can still take cash, I guess. You can still take credit cards and checks and all of that. But hot or not, cryptocurrency for business.
Not for a while.
Not for a while. Talk about it.
Volatility.
Okay.
Right. Volatility of the currency. That's the only reason why. Until that stabilizes, I say not.
Okay.
Okay. What about hot or not? Some of these alternative methods like Apple Pay and Google Pay and Venmo.
Hot. They'll stick around for a long time. And the reason why is because, Apple Pay and Google Pay sit on top of the credit card rails. So it's still a traditional payment method that is tied to a credit card specifically. And they're convenient. They are so convenient that I love them. I leave my wallet at home or something like that. I'm constantly swiping my watch. And if people don't have Apple Pay, I'm encouraging them to have it, even if they don't get it from us, because it's an amazing technology that's incredibly convenient. I don't see why anyone wouldn't.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, and I've had Apple Pay for a long time and had the wallet and you keep a bunch of stuff in there. But when the pandemic hit, I actually really accelerated using it because you didn't want to touch anything, right?
Yep.
And so you had it right there on your phone or on your watch, and it took that whole thing away. And now today, it's just become something that I always do. Okay, hot or not, because I want you to talk a little bit more about this. Podcasting.
Hot.
And let's talk about, as much as I'd like to talk about this podcast, which I hope you're having fun with, let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah. So I have 3. One of them is Real Talk, which is a podcast about people who have and continue to overcome adversity. So we just tell raw, real life stories of people who are, making an impact in the world with something that they experienced a tremendous amount of adversity with. The second one is the Athlete's Journey podcast, which is about interviewing athletes who have been successful after their transition out of athletics. So we try to bring out the tips and strategies that current athletes can deploy as they make their transition. And then the last one is the Entrepreneur's Ultimate Tax. And that one is about all of the things that we experience as entrepreneurs that are taxing on us as a business, not traditional taxes, but it's all the other things. It's relationships, it's teams, it's our health and our approach to that, or our lack of approach to that can really cost us our business and everything else that we're building the business for.
That is fascinating. So you are busy with podcasts. I want to go back to something you just said about the athlete's journey. Hot or not, college athletics as a training ground for future successful entrepreneurs.
Is there an in between?
Tell us why you feel that way.
Well, I think that it could be, but not necessarily, right? I think that obviously the hard work translates from being an athlete to being an entrepreneur. But I also think that not everyone that's an athlete should be an entrepreneur, right? Sometimes you need to be within an organization if you need that structure and you want to be an entrepreneur within an organization, what they consider to be an intrapreneur, right? And so I think that sports is a great foundation for building an incredible life, learning team building, learning values, learning work ethic. But to say that it's, a training ground for entrepreneurship, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want to commit to that yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably just like any team there, you probably can look back to the years you played basketball. There were guys that were kind of that natural leader or maybe driven in that way. And then there were those who were role players, and probably just like society, they fit into that system for how they're wired. Yeah, we know you're a speaker. We talked about that. So hot or not, virtual keynote speaking.
Not.
Okay.
Not, because there is nothing like going to an event and having someone speak, right, in person without restrictions. We've made do with the technology that we have, and it's been great. I will say that Zoom one-on-one meetings is hot and it's here to stay, but keynotes, I think that if anything, it'll be virtual, it'll be hybrid, where people will still be able to attend, and the people that can't can opt in and
yeah, Linda, I'm gonna I want a quick follow up. I couldn't agree with you more. I think what it's done is it's created opportunities for meeting planners to expand. So you bring Keith in to speak, and you got 300 or 400 people in the room, but you also have folks who might not be able to make it, and they can engage and be part of that. So I think we're going to see really kind of a new era in speaking. Linda.
All right. I agree with you, by the way. I think we're not going back, but we can't still on the screen and do that forever and ever. So let's talk a little bit about, you do a little advisory services. So hot or not, working with entrepreneurs and helping them build relationships, personal relationships with clients around the whole payment area. Is that something that you think is going to take off?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to take off, actually. I think that the work that we do in terms of how we approach it, with it being more advisory than purely just sales, is going to continue to shift, because companies are committed to capturing transactional volume for their platform. So software companies are jumping into the payment space and wanting to enable these different payment methods on their platform and create unique experiences for their customers that are engaging with their software. And so it's hot. It is a very hot market. It's changing every single day. And it's something that obviously is the lifeblood of a business, is cash flow. So the continual reorchestration on how companies get paid and the opportunities and revenue centers that they can open up with technology will continue to expand, and the market will continue to grow.
To that point, if you're a small business owner, you might look at this and say, this seems to be, there's more complexity to this than, hey, I get signed up through whoever, and you have banks that are doing merchant services. You've got individual companies like you doing that. And it could become overwhelming because, somebody's paying this certain fee or somebody's paying this. And how do I ever really know where, I can see small business owners almost literally pulling out their hair saying, I don't understand how much I'm keeping at the end. Talk a little bit about the different players and what makes them different, everywhere from banks to companies like yours.
Yeah. So in a book that I wrote called The Truth About Accepting Credit Cards, I lay out kind of the different players. And the first player is like a direct processor, which there's only 9 or 10 real platforms in the United States that route and deposit money from merchants, right? And so those players are who they are. The second one is what I would call independent sales organization. And that's what a bank would be, because they are partnered with one of those major players and they're reselling their services to merchants, and they're setting up those accounts and managing them the best they can. And then the last one would be what I would consider to be a payment facilitator. And that's what many software companies are starting to become now, where they are partnered with a direct processing platform of some sort, and they're able to take control of the payment processing within their software. So the different players, I think for a business owner, it is overwhelming because you don't know who you're dealing with and where they fit in the value chain. So I think as a business owner, traditionally, the way we've approached it has been, okay, we're going to get the best rate that we can find, that we can get. We're going to put a credit card terminal on the counter, and we're going to try to maybe send an invoice here and there, and then we're good. Where we're going is much different than that. And the conversation needs to be different than that for business owners, because not only do you need to get, hopefully a good rate and some good service and some good software, but what you really need is someone that understands your business and the additional points of revenue or revenue centers that you can create on top of your payment platform, so that you can build new points of revenue within your company. And that's kind of where we try to step in and, okay, yes, we can get you a better rate. Yes, we can help you find software. Yes, we can solve these issues you're having, but have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? What if we add some recurring payments? What if we add some memberships? What if you're a restaurant and you can offer a different menu to a different customer based on them maybe being a VIP customer, some things that you couldn't do before? How can we reorganize this technology that you already have and help you build a better business?
To follow up on that, a colleague of mine, Robbie Kelman Baxter, wrote a book about the membership economy, which you just mentioned. So hot or not, adding membership features to, for small businesses, entrepreneurs, as another way to build their business.
Depends. It depends on the model. It depends on their offering, and it depends on their capabilities to build value into a membership. The reason why people want to be on a membership is because the operator of that organization understands how to create continual value so that people continue to pay. Just to throw a membership out there, it may backfire if there's no continual value that continues to grow throughout that membership. If people get bored with the membership, then it kind of like there's no reason to keep it.
Do you feel that membership, has that kind of gone up or down during this pandemic? Do you think there's been more of that?
It's gone up.
Yeah,
it's gone up. Yeah, absolutely. Especially because consumers are being trained by organizations like Amazon and Netflix, and everything is a recurring payment versus a one-time, hey, you buy your Microsoft Office one time and you're good to go for a while.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. It's about value. Membership is fantastic as long as you feel you're getting value, and you named Amazon and Netflix, and I'm members of both, and I wouldn't even think about not, but if you're not getting the value, it's easy to walk away. So before we hit break, I got to ask you another hot or not, because you're an entrepreneur. I think I just called you a serial entrepreneur to a certain degree. Which one is hotter? They're both important, but I want to know which one's hotter: street smarts or book smarts?
Street smarts, hands down.
Okay. I thought I had you
down.
pondering there for a second.
Yeah, no, hands down, street smarts.
And why?
Yeah,
tell us a little bit of why.
Well, because street smarts, I think, is where where you gain the emotional intelligence of how to work with people. You learn different ways to operate in the world with street smarts. And I mean, at the end of the day, a book can only, my grandmother used to always tell me that a taught lesson is better than a bought lesson, but in a lot of ways, a bought lesson is better than a taught lesson, right? Because if you go through something that you personally experience, and you experience the stress of a wrong decision, you're never going to repeat it again, right? And so, and then you can pass that on. A book, if we're not emotionally involved in something, it's really not, it won't reach the deepest core of where it needs to be for us to actually act on it and
Right.
Improve our life or improve our business. Right. And so,
well, it's really the concept that we learn from our mistakes, we learn from failures, and it's that bought lesson. I hadn't heard it in that way. I really like that a lot. What I also really like is thanking our sponsors, and we're going to do that here as we take our second break. We're going to take that break to hear from them, and when we come back with our guest Keith Sconiers for our Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to find out a little bit about his basketball career. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, Kids Up Sun Newspaper, BC Fitness Studio, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now, back to the show.
Okay. Well, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond, including Portland today. I'm co-host Linda Popke, and our guest today is Keith Sconiers. And our next segment is Plead the Fifth. So Dan, explain a little bit for Keith what's going to happen here.
We're putting on a little bit more of a full court press here, Keith. As you can see, we're heading into basketball talk. We're going to still pepper you with questions. This time, though, we're going to ask you maybe a little bit harder ones. You get to plead the fifth once if you want, once and only once. So be careful with that. And again, at the end, you win absolutely nothing. So I mentioned your basketball career. Look, I coached basketball for 6 years. I played in high school, but I wasn't very good. But I bet you were pretty good all the way through. But there had been at least one epic failure that happened on the basketball court that you look back and maybe you were embarrassed, maybe it was something you learned from, but what was that? Do you have one epic fail in your basketball career at any level that you'd be willing to share with us?
An epic fail. Yeah, I would say that I had an opportunity to have a play drawn up for me one time. And I want to say we were in like Iowa or something. We were playing against the Cyclones, I think, or we were at a tournament. And I think the coach drew up a play for me, and it was like a dunk play. And I ended up getting it. It went perfect. And I went up to dunk, and my elbow hit the side of the backboard, and I lost the ball. So I didn't get the dunk. Oh my gosh. I've been praying for that opportunity for like years, like, please draw something up for me. And yeah, it was an epic fail.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, my elbow had never even come close to a backboard, at least a regulation size backboard. So I would have never had that problem.
Oh, that's funny. It's funny. I want to you talked about being a speaker. And, I've heard that some people think speaking is even worse than dying. They have a bigger fear of public speaking and dying.
Sure.
So tell us about, what kind of nervousness and concerns you had maybe in front of a group, and how'd you get over that?
Yeah, I would say that over it. I don't know that I'm not over it yet, because it's a process. And I think that the things that I share are, they're, we're talking about being at risk and being exposed to drugs, gangs, drug dealers, pimps, prostitutes, things of that nature at a very young age. And they're, it's emotional, right? And so for me, just because of the things that I share. And so, I'm not over it in terms of like the nervousness, because I'm not just talking about facts, figures, and, I could talk about credit card processing pretty well in front of people, but when I talk about the things that I really like to discuss and talk about with athletes and groups of entrepreneurs, I'm nervous, but that's okay. We're going to do it anyway. And I think that's where the power comes in at is not just doing things that we're comfortable with, but doing things because they're the right thing to do.
So I'm going to make you nervous even again. We're going to make you speak. We're going to put you back on that basketball court in a high school gymnasium. We're going to make you speak, but you're speaking to, I don't know, a couple hundred high school seniors. You've been brought in to give some pearls of wisdom. What kind of advice, what kind of stories would you be giving high school seniors today if you had that opportunity?
Yeah, I would probably say that there's probably two key pieces of advice, or three. I would say that I started playing basketball when I was a sophomore in high school, and I was able to, play at the Division I level, which only, I believe, 4% of athletes ever accomplish that. I would say I attribute that to, number one, relationships. So I had a coach who opened doors for me, the one who told me that I should be playing sports to begin with. So relationships are incredibly important. Number two is work ethic, right? People can open doors for you, but if you're not willing to do the work that it takes to be successful, then it's not going to happen. And then lastly, number three is being a student of the game. When I look back on what I was able to accomplish, there's parts of me that feels like my career wasn't as successful as it could have been. And I think that's true for the most part for everyone. We can all look back and say, gosh, if I would have done this or if I would have done that, then maybe I would have really achieved more. And I would say that, of course, we can all look back and do that. But I would say that if I was a better student of the game, then I definitely would have achieved more if I understood at a deeper level what I was trying to accomplish as an athlete, what my coach was trying to communicate about the plays that he was drawing up, right? If I would have gone the extra mile to be a much better student off the court as it relates to what was happening on the court, I would have achieved more. So I would tell, these high school seniors that you got to work hard, you got to build relationships because it's not all about you and you can't accomplish anything on your own. And you need to be a student of the game and student of life. And you need to really sit down and think about who you are, what you want, how to get it, but also understand the people around you and really be a student of making sure you understand what you need to understand to achieve what it is that you want to achieve.
Fascinating, fascinating. I want to go in a little bit different direction. I have a kind of a scenario here. You're at a dinner party. You can sit next to anybody in the world, alive, dead or alive. Who are you going to sit next to, and what's the one question you're going to ask them?
Wow. I would probably sit down with my grandfather. So I lived with my dad from the 5th to the 8th grade. My dad was battling addiction, incarceration, and mental health. And he always told me stories about my grandfather because I never got the chance to meet him because he died before I was born. And if I could sit down with my grandfather, I would want to know, like, how did he do it? And when I say, how did he do it? After learning that he had a tumor on the base of his brain and that he only had years to live, he built my grandmother a 6-bedroom home with recycled wood that he had gotten from a contract for tearing down homes. And that's the home that I lived in high school. So I would want to know, how did you muster up the focus, the energy, and the courage and the willpower to build a home for your wife, who's my grandmother, so that your family, decades and decades and decades after you've passed away, are still living in that home and able to provide for their family and their children. And I would say, if I could sit down with anyone, it would be him, because his legacy continues to motivate me. And it's why I continue to work so hard as an entrepreneur.
Dude, I got to tell you, I got chills right now. That was such a great story.
Wow.
I literally have chill. I love that story. It's amazing. And what a great legacy your grandfather left. Okay, I gotta get this one in. Like I said, you just kind of stunned me with that. It was awesome. But we've been asking all of our guests over the last year the same question. Maybe we'll do a compilation. Got to start another business, whether you got rid of the ones you have now or not. You got to start another business, and we're going to make you base it on a hobby. What's the hobby and what's the business?
If I were to, I would be the next diners, drive-ins, and dives.
All right. There you
That's what I would
go.
do. That's what I would do.
You're
Because
talking about you're talking about going to all these diners, drive-ins, and dives like Guy Fieri, tasting the food and all of that,
Yep.
right?
Yep, exactly.
I like
Yep.
it.
Yep.
I like it.
Yeah.
That
So I would do
is
that.
cool.
What would you do, Dan?
All right. Well, here you go. I'll give Linda a chance to. I would open up a boutique Top Golf type of a thing. So obviously you can't compete with the size of Top Golf, but you'd have maybe 2 or 3 studios because the weather here isn't always great. So you have a place with golf simulators. You could hold parties. You could rent it out for that. You could have memberships and all of that. So it'd be probably something to do with setting up a little boutique style kind of mini Top Golf type thing for local communities and teams and people who just needed to get out of the cold or want to improve their skills in a fun way. Linda, I don't know if I know what's yours before we get to the contact info.
Yeah, I live and breathe music and play piano, classical piano, jazz piano, etc. So it would have to be something around music and piano and helping people enjoy it or appreciate it or get into it or something of that nature. I'm not sure exactly what, but it would be around music.
He turned the table on us, Linda, at the very end.
He did.
He just turned the
He
table
did.
on us.
Yeah, we could do all that stuff together. We could
We
just
could, and then you would be able to help us get paid for it. So
Right.
that's
Oh.
really important.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. Now
See?
we're talking. There you
We
go.
go. A little live jazz music and some
Yeah,
golf and some catered food. Yeah.
that
Ah.
sounds great. Sign me up.
So Linda, I think unfortunately we've hit to the where we got to get some contact
We gotta
information.
get
Yeah, I
to
can't
who it
believe
is.
we already
Okay.
just went so fast.
Okay, so Keith, thank you again for being here on the Shrimp Tank. And for our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about your company, how do they get more information? Where do they go?
Yeah, so they can find out more about me at keithsconiers.com. They could also learn more about PaySuite at paysuitepay.com. And I'm also available on LinkedIn and Instagram and all the social platforms, Facebook. So yeah, those are the best places to connect with me though.
Great. And if you want to find out more about us, you can check out all the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle and wherever you get your podcasts, such as iHeart, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, because Dan, we are
Ubiquitous.
ubiquitous. And you can follow us on our show's social media pages, including YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
All right. Hey, Keith, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Thanks for sharing your life and your business with us. Linda, as always, great to see you. Everybody, listen to exactly what Linda said. Go to the Facebook page, like us, follow us there, because that's where we live stream every Wednesday at noon. Our next show will be Wednesday, March 9th. Our guest will be my good friend, Jake Bernstein with K&L Gates. We're going to be talking about cybersecurity law. So Jake's a fun guy. We'll have a good time with that. But in the meantime, please be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.